So yeah, so I'm sure as you know, both my parents are from Tanzania. We've been here, and I think in Maryland for pretty much my entire life. We moved a little bit around in Maryland. I majored in government and politics,
Huh?
and when I was at UMD, so but just because you major in government and politics, it doesn't mean you have to go to law school. People do a lot of different
Yep.
things with that degree.
Mhm.
However, law school is a more popular path.
Hello, my name is Becki Mari. I'm a second year undergraduate student at Emory University. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area.
Uh-huh.
I'm studying neuroscience and behavioral biology, and I'm double majoring with African studies, and I'm also on the pre-med
Hi,
track.
hi everyone. My name is Nolyn. Um, I'm from Oklahoma and Houston, but currently I'm at school at Yale University,
Mhm.
and I'm studying majoring in molecular biophysics and biochemistry.
Mhm.
Um, and I hope to use that to become a physician in the future. And then also I forgot to mention I'm also interested in public health and more specifically interested in like racial health inequalities, and hope to use that to inform me practicing medicine in the future.
Is Naila and I attend Columbia University. I am currently a first year and I am pursuing a degree in neuroscience and public health. So I am double majoring.
My name is Phineas. I am a current second year a master's and PhD student at MIT in their electrical engineering and computer science department. Right now, I'm pursuing my degree specifically in pure electrical engineering, was dealing with power systems, and my specific research that deals with the expansion and development of rural microgrids in economically challenged communities.
My name is Hanifa Maswali. I am a senior biology and international studies double major, comparative women's studies minor at Spelman College. So I am pursuing both a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science degree. I'm originally from the Boston area, but of course I've relocated to Atlanta, Georgia for the meantime for my studies.
My name is Omary. I'm a postdoc now here at the Johns Hopkins Medicine. I'm doing postdoc research, but I've just graduated from my PhD in biomedical engineering a couple of months ago. So nimeunga kuja kufanya postdoc hapa.
But I think for me, the thing that really helps in making sure that high school, although I think it was a little bit harder, was just really making like not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to like talk with people, and really just setting yourself up for success. I think that's a hard thing to grapple with when you don't know where schools you're going to get into. You don't know what what the application process will look like in terms of like what your results will be. But what you can control now and what you can control in the present is making sure that you're setting your future self up for the best possible opportunities. I had like a vision board of like where I saw myself in like
Yep.
5 years from now.
Yep.
And it was actually really funny. At the time, my like dream school was like Columbia Law School because
Uh-huh.
like I didn't even think I could ever get into Harvard. So I was like, Columbia is a dream. As long as I get there, I'll be so happy.
Uh-huh.
And I got into Columbia as well, but then also
Uh-huh.
HLS. So I
Yeah.
think when you give yourself these things to kind of like stick to,
Uh-huh.
even if it can change like mine did a little bit, it is something that keeps you motivated. And having also like my family being there were just a really great crutch as well. Your parents, no matter even when you guys I think are beefing a little bit or like they don't agree on everything, they really do have your best interests. They really want to make sure that you succeed.
Uh-huh.
So not being afraid to also just rely on them was a really, really big crutch for me as well. I would say the high school counselors are really great. The only thing is that one, all high schools and the resources aren't built equally. And two, oftentimes the counselors have, I think, hundreds of students that they're working with.
Yes.
So that can feel really hard to have, I think, those like more deeper connections. I think not necessarily peer. I think peer-to-peer is really great in terms of like encouragement, but especially peer to someone who is 1 to 2 years older than you.
Yep.
And they can still be your peer, but like having friends who have gone through this process already and seeing them go through the process the year before, I think that is a really invaluable experience because you get to just get more information about what worked, what didn't work, what did they get success in, what wasn't successful for them. I had mentors, one of my closest mentors, she went to UMD, she went to Stanford Law School, a year, 2 years above me, but she was like one of my closest confidants throughout the entire cycle. And when you have like 1 or 2 people you can really trust, who you know have had good results and
Uh-huh.
can look over your statements. They can give you advice. They
Uh-huh.
can really just answer those tiny questions, similar to college, but now applied for like law school. That
Uh-huh.
helped me a lot as well. And it's something that you'll just always need to be thinking about when you're thinking of your college application is the letters of recommendation. I actually think those are a really big silent killer for a lot of applications because oftentimes I highly recommend that whenever you apply, you waive your right to see what your recommenders actually say about you. It does two things. It does a really great job of making sure that the admissions counselors know that this is like the raw and filtered truth. And then two, it puts a lot more weight in the words that are being said as well, because they know you didn't really have any like second read over it. I think, and I did a lot better job at this in college than I did in high school, but I think a really easy and natural way to start working and making sure that you're confident in your recommenders is just the classes that you're interested in. Oftentimes those teachers will teach another class at the school and at the high school that is either like a different, slightly a more higher like version of the subject or something like tangential to it. When you take more than one class with the teacher, or you have the teacher sponsor an extracurricular activity that they're in charge of and that you run or that you're a part of, when they get to see all these sides of you, they can write so much more than just the average student in the class who like these teachers have many students. So something that I did was when I asked for a letter of recommendation, if they said yes, I then attached like my resume and then I also to see so they could see what else I was doing and what else I was involved in. But then I also just gave a few blurbs of just like, here's some things that I've done in your class before. Here's some things in case you forgot about how I've been interacting with the class to really just help jog their memory when they are writing those letters. Financial burden, the biggest and most helpful thing was definitely my parents. I also was able to do in-state tuition for UMD. So my tuition ended up being, I think, at the time, I want to say 8K or so, not including room and board for tuition. And I was just really thankful that like my parents are a big reason why I ended up going to UMD and that they really impressed upon me just how much debt I would be really taking on if I didn't choose to go to UMD. I also think I even talked with some pre-law students before as well, who got a full ride at their state school and got into schools like Harvard and got into schools like Yale, ended up choosing the full ride at their state school, partly for like to be closer to family, but also because some full rides include like cost of room and board as well. So you're truly going for free. And if you know, and I think this depends on your path and how you think what you want to do. For most people, I would say you should probably go to like the best school you get into to a certain extent, assuming that they're in the top 20 colleges. But even that, I don't think is a fact that you should always apply. I think if you know for a fact you want to go to med school or you want to go to grad school, you want to go to any secondary education. And at the time when I was choosing, I knew for a fact that I wanted to go to law school. Going to UMD not only sets you up to be, I think, shine even brighter at the school because, not everyone is also gunning to do law school after at UMD. Amazing people who went to the school, of course, who are doing amazing things, but it does make it a little bit easier in that sense. Yeah, so I applied to 24 law schools. I don't recommend that.
Why you don't recommend that?
I think you only really need to apply to like 10 or like 12 and you'll be good. When I was applying, since I was going straight through and I graduated a year early, my college counselor was like, or my pre-law counselor at the University of Maryland was like, you're not going to get into any of these schools. Good luck. But I got into all of them and I was waitlisted by 3. So no rejections. So I was also waitlisted at Harvard and then I got off the waitlist, I think like a week into May. But yeah, I got into Columbia, Cornell, Penn, UVA, Duke. I think a few things. The 3 biggest ones is that really taking the time to prepare for the interviews, I think is really important. When you do the work for the interviews, it makes it having a conversation, making it be natural. You shouldn't necessarily have every single word prepared for your interview and be memorizing it or like trying to like read off of something because they'll tell. And they can see
it becomes so obvious. Like, hey, you're reading it from somewhere.
Exactly. Like you're not really being natural. And especially when you get those like off the wall questions, you won't be prepared for that. Having bullet points for those are really great. The second thing, I think, really great stats when you do the work in undergrad to like make sure that your GPA is as strong as possible. It really does set you apart in terms of like just being above. Every single law school will have a 50th percentile for the GPA. And I think I was above the 75th percentile for every single law school's GPA in the country. So like when I went into the application, I was just a little bit more confident that at least I know that the stats of what I need are in the realm of what I need. And then I think finally, not overemphasizing what you do, not overemphasizing what you don't know, and not downplaying what you do know, I think are it's a really hard line to toe and balance in your resume and in your personal statement and in your diversity statement as well. When I think, especially if you're applying straight through, or if you only have like 1 year of experience, these admissions counselors have seen amazing, incredible people who've actually done the work. So they know what it looks like when someone has been an international arbitration law assistant for 2 years versus someone who did 1 internship in DC. And not to say that the internship in DC can't be meaningful, but by no means will you know that you want to do this kind of work based off of 1 internship. So I think for me, I really emphasized the parts of my application that had to do with being a teaching assistant, because I was a teaching assistant for 3 classes, having my on-campus work experience, because I worked on like 2 to 3 different jobs on campus a semester. And when they were able to see that I was not only committed to those things, but then I was doing well and flourishing in that, even though I didn't have the work experience of doing like something for 2 years after undergrad, they knew that I would be a at least successful candidate at the law school. Really going back to the research and mentorship, there's a podcast which I highly recommend if anyone who's ever interested in applying to law school. It's called Navigating Law School Admissions with Kristi and Miriam. Those are the deans of Harvard and Yale's law school. And they go for literally 30 different episodes about every single part of the law school application, and they tell you do's and don'ts. And I listened to every single one, and I applied almost all of them to my application.
You said your dream was Columbia, but you ended up going to Harvard. Why?
Something that's not talked enough about is the career after your degree, and if you want to do a switch. Columbia is an amazing school and will have amazing opportunities and a variety of things within the legal system. But it would be a lie to say that a degree from Harvard Law School doesn't open up doors outside of the law, which I just really wanted to have the potential opportunity to do if that's where I saw myself. Because even though I know where I'm potentially going to be in the next 2 or 3 years, I don't know where I'm going to be 10 years, 15 years down the line. And if I do want to have that kind of switch, not only is a Harvard Law degree a really flexible degree and giving you a type of social credit that I think, especially as like Black people and as Black immigrants in this country, it's really important to have. It's been very crazy even in this past year. It's like you're talking with someone and you're like, oh, where do you go? And you're like, oh, I go to Harvard Law School. And they're like, their eyes lit up a little. The fact that these schools have. But then it's also that like I will have a network and community. Harvard Law School is the 2nd largest law school in the country. So I'll have such a deep and rich network of people who are doing such amazing work from so many realms that I can tap into, where it's like, we went to class together. You've came over to my house to have dinner before. And now I see that you're going to be doing something for the Supreme Court. Or now I see that you're going to be doing something under the presidency. Now I see that you're doing something in big tech. And it's like, those connections, I think, are really invaluable and often understated when you're choosing post-grad degrees. And that was something that I really wanted to make sure that I had connections with. First thing, I feel like it's crazy to even think that I'm a role model, but like it really is. And seeing that effect has been so great in the past year. I think it's 2 things. The first one that I talked about before, and I can't hark on it enough, the importance of setting your future self up for success. And just remembering that during the really hard times when you don't want to do that assignment, when you don't want to go to that extra job, when you don't want to spend time doing something, when you get really short-sighted on your goals. And your goals do not need to be, oh, I want to go to Harvard Law School. My goal was not even I wanted to go to Columbia until like my 2nd year at undergrad. My goals in high school were just, I would love to be a lawyer. I'm interested in what the law is. But when you have these goals, when you recognize that doing the work now will set you up for so much success in the future, it's a really hard thing, I think, to like conceptualize when it's like, oh, I need to do this now means that Y will be more likely. But when you start to see the fruits of your labor really come to fruition, I think that is really great. And then I think that's a lot more lofty in the air. On the more smaller scale, I think having grace, and although I just said to work hard, I think having grace and recognizing that sometimes your plan won't go according to plan is really important. And a skill that I think I learned early on in undergrad that has helped me immensely in law school is how to bounce back, how to fight back when you get a grade you don't like on a quiz, when you actually don't get the job you wanted, when you don't get that internship that you wanted. Let's say, I remember for me, I had a plan that I wanted to graduate in 3 years and I wanted to get like straight straight A's in all my classes. I had this, it's going to sound insufferable because I had one A minus, but I remember at the time I was like, this one A minus will be the reason I don't get into a single school. That was, I did perfectly fine. I did really great. And in high school, I had so many other opportunities like that where it's like one thing goes wrong and you kind of start to like catastrophize and you start to like think it's all over and it's all ruined. And I think that's the thing that can really slow down an incredible progress and an incredible journey because you really are just bogging down on yourself. So I think that if it wasn't for all of the mistakes that I've made and going through those mistakes and bouncing back and being successful, even if I got into Harvard, and I was here, but I didn't have that skill, I would not have survived here. And I would not at all survive in my legal career coming down the line. You need to have that ability to, I think, bounce back and have that ability to understand when you make a mistake and when something didn't go your way, but then now what's the next step? And that might not look the same for every single thing, If you get a bad grade, the next step might be studying harder, doing better in that class. However, if the first step is a lot harder or the first mistake is a lot bigger, then you might need a little bit more time to bounce back. But making sure that you have those ideas and that you're kind of planning and ready for that. And that you don't think that one mistake will be the end, I think it's a really freeing feeling when you realize that as long as you keep going down your path, even though there are mistakes, even though there are things that aren't going 100% to the plan you had in your head, that you'll be all right because you have the skills, you have that, again, investment in yourself to do well in the future. I think that is all that really matters. But yeah, so in a quick one, invest in your future self and don't be too hard on yourself if that plan isn't perfect. Yeah.
Okay, I think the most important mentors for me, especially in high school, were the students who were older than me. Like when I was a freshman, I made a lot of friends who were juniors and seniors, and they were actually the people most involved in my college application process. Like at my high school, we had college advisors and we also had teachers there to help us. But it was most useful for me to listen to the students who had just recently gone through the college application process, those who had just done their essays and knew kind of what the colleges I was interested in were looking for. I don't have any older siblings. I'm the oldest. I have a younger sister and a younger brother. But I definitely had a lot of family friends and just other friends who had older siblings who were also somewhat involved in my college process. So I would suggest now with the modified version of the SAT and it being a little bit shorter, I think that you should study for it and you should take it if you can. Give yourself at least 3 months and make sure you're very consistent with that studying because that was my problem. It was hard to balance my actual schoolwork and studying for this test that I wasn't prioritizing, basically. I went to a private independent school for high school. So some of the extracurriculars I was involved in were very affinity based, like Black Student Union, African Students Associations, things like that. And I had assumed leadership positions in those starting my sophomore year. So by the time I was a senior, I was president of maybe 4 or 5 different organizations. And I also had very close relationships with the teachers who I chose to write my college essays. And they weren't necessarily teachers from the classes I had consistently done well in. It was teachers who had also seen me, struggling at some moments and just saw the way I was able to improve throughout the semester or throughout the year. Especially for freshmen, I would say join as many clubs as you want when you're a freshman. Join 15 if you want, because you're very quickly going to realize that you actually don't like half of them. So just join different things, try out different opportunities, so you can see what you're interested in, and also think about that academically. Try your best to do well in your classes and see what subjects are best for you. So then that way, when you are finishing your sophomore year, going to be a junior, you can look into summer programs you might want to try that cater to your interests. And also just talk to your teachers and form really good relationships with them, because they want to help you, and they're gonna write good letters for you. They just need to know you. I
Got it.
wanted to be a doctor since like 7th grade.
Mhm.
My interest has always been in maternal health. I wanted to be an OBGYN for the longest time,
Mhm.
just based on many different experiences. I remember I was 5 and I think I watched a C-section. It
Mhm.
was a YouTube video. Maybe I shouldn't have seen the video,
Mhm.
but since then my interest has been piqued. And then my other major that I really love is African studies. Um, I am like, although I love STEM, I just have to have something humanities like mixed in there because I like writing, I like reading, and just learning more about history and things like that. I took an African cinema course the second semester of my freshman year, and the professor was amazing, and I just loved the subject. I loved learning about Africa and everything.
Omary?
Yeah, at Emory. So
Okay.
the professor just convinced me. She was like, you should just major in it. And I was like, okay.
I kind of had and I've a little bit of a different path to getting to where I am, just because my brother helped me a lot. He was my biggest mentor,
Mhm.
schools, like academic schools, not necessarily athletic schools.
Mhm.
He told me kind of where to apply, where not to apply,
Mhm.
mainly looking into, he gave me the perspective of like from what he's heard from other students going to those schools.
Mhm.
Because yes, you can look online, like it says online will say like a bunch of good things about the school,
Yep.
but you won't really know the truth until you like talk to a student who will be honest with you.
Mhm.
Applied to 5 tennis schools
Mhm.
and 5 or 6 schools, and then I think like 15 other academic schools. I got into I think I got rejected slash waitlisted from like 2 or 3 of them. The advice that I give to everyone is find your reason why.
Mhm.
That's what my parents have told me for a very long time.
Mhm.
So it makes it easier if you have a reason why instead of making it up. And
Mhm.
admissions readers can definitely tell when
Mhm.
you're making things up. I actually read my admissions file, and they mentioned the amount of AP classes that I took.
Mhm.
Because I took uh I don't remember the exact number, but I took like quite a bit
Mhm.
since freshman year, and so they kind of noted the fact that since the get-go, I was trying to challenge and push myself academically.
What inspired you to study your major?
I have always been interested in understanding how things worked.
Do you still play tennis?
Not too much anymore.
Yeesh. Yeah,
Yeah.
you retired.
Yeah.
I think honestly, mentors are probably one of the most important parts. If you think about it, any interaction that you have with any person can kind of guide your life in any way. You can take away what you want from that. And for me, I was really lucky because I had a lot of examples of people applying to college and pursuing higher education. And I always knew that that was something that I wanted to do.
Mhm.
My mom really instilled like a huge emphasis on education from a really young age. And
Mhm.
so I honestly just sought out to be in an environment that motivated me to achieve the goals that I wanted. And so some specific mentors are people that were a grade above me in school that I
Mhm.
saw doing really well, and
Mhm.
people who I was friends with, or even people who were the same age as me who had different goals that I could learn and be inspired from, honestly. And then I also think that we live in a very modern age with a lot of technology and social media. So if you really like utilize that and get out of it like the most that you can and maximize the opportunities that are out there through just like one tap on a screen. That's also super helpful. So just seeking out people that I see are doing well. I feel like the whole college application process is really focused on numbers, but you really need to not consider yourself as a number or as a statistic, and you need to be you and tell me a story specifically to you. Because while good grades are important and rankings are important, at the end of the day, that's not what's gonna make you unique. Because everybody can have a certain GPA, everybody can have a certain ranking in their class. You need to tell me what makes you you, and I think that's what I was able to do really well. And that's why I was able to get into some of the universities that I got into, because I told a story that's unique to myself. You know, you can be valedictorian and the person next to you can also be valedictorian, but the person next to you cannot have your story. So for me specifically, with my extracurriculars and with my essays, and honestly, just like taking and looking within myself to see what makes me unique and what I'm passionate about and what I want to use school to achieve and the person that I want to become. And so really finding your own personal story to tell and your own personal thing that you're bringing to the table, because at the end of the day, you are not the same as the next person, regardless of your statistics. So just really make it personalized to you. I think I applied to a little bit more than I think is recommended. I applied to 18 schools. I got into 16 of my 18
Nice.
schools.
Congratulations.
Thank you, but I really like to emphasize that so many people are qualified for all these schools, but the reality is that schools can only take so many. So you might be the perfect candidate and you might be overly qualified and you still might not get in. And at a certain point, I do believe that like when everyone is at a certain level of like proficiency and a certain level of achievement, it's really just a toss of a coin. So I took both the SAT and ACT, and I did a lot better on my ACT score to a couple schools. And I think with the submissions of ACT scores and SAT scores, right now in the current time that we're in, it is really required. It's not really optional. It will say that it's optional, but it's not optional. If you look at it from an admission standpoint and the statistics, based off who's getting in with or without submitting a score, you will see that it's really not optional anymore. But as far as the score that you get, it really depends on the schools that you're applying to. There's a different range. There's good scores for certain schools, and then some scores that aren't really good enough for other schools. So I think definitely do some research into the university that you're applying to and see if your score falls within a good range. And if it doesn't, there's a lot of free online tools that you can use to, better improve your score. I took the ACT and I got a 34 combined super score. So that translates to about like, I'm not 100% sure what it translates to an SAT score, but I think around the 1500s.
I don't think I'd be here at all without having each of the mentors that I had. I've had a lot over the years. So even starting back from, let's say, Central, right? I was part of what they call the Dream STEM program, which is basically an NSF funded program where they support students interested in STEM and specifically engineering, and say like physics department is probably one of the largest departments we have there in terms of STEM. So yeah, they would always, since it was a relatively small group at that school, basically whenever I needed questions about advice, what kind of internships I wanted to do, or I told them like, okay, this is kind of, I for a long time, I've understood that I kind of wanted to go down this power systems route, but I was in physics. So I was like, okay, could you mind helping me connect these dots? I want to be able to leverage my experiences here and eventually get to a point where I can put myself in a position to help in that way. And then that's how they connected me with the 3+2 program. That's how I ended up at NC State. And then from there, even though I would say it was a little less intimate than Central, I had lots of mentors in the entrepreneurship program, because that's something I'm also very involved with and getting more involved with here at MIT. And then again at Central, they connected me with actually my first mentor here at MIT, which is Arup Chakrabarty, who I actually did an REU with back in the summer of 2022 when I came up here, part of the MSRP, my MIT Summer Research Program. His guidance was invaluable. And then along all these paths, I've had many teachers, and then again, my mentors that actually wrote letters of recommendation for me for both the application and the graduate school application and my fellowship applications. And honestly, like I know I did well in undergrad, but without that extra little, step or I guess a cosign from them, I don't know if I would actually been able to get into a place as competitive as MIT. So I am very grateful. The best thing you can do is just look for experiences, right? Because especially at that age, when you're in middle school and high school, like, and it was true for me because I switched between wanting to do, I was always interested in STEM, but I switched between like what aspect I want to do. I used to want to be doing civil engineering, mechatronics, and then I eventually got to where I wanted to be with power systems. But it's basically, it's like your experiences, if you're able to go find some of these extracurricular activities, it kind of gets you acquainted with the space that you're I'm interested in, and you kind of can see, do I like the nuances of this work? Because like on a high level, outside looking in, oh yeah, everything looks fancy. It's like, engineers, like robots, holograms,
Yep.
whatever, fancy technology, but do you really enjoy the nitty-gritty of going in? Do you enjoy programming? Do you enjoy creating PCBs? Getting into the intricate aspects that kind of get you to those high-level applications of that field. And you're just not going to know till you try. Right? Look, that's me, like in hindsight, because even throughout middle school and high school, I didn't have many experiences like that. I think I had I forgot what the program was called, where I kind of hooked up a blinking LED, like an LED to a circuit board and made it blink. When I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. There's another thing where like in my middle school, they had like this STEM program where I did like a little bit of architecture, like I did an architecture class. I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting. But it wasn't actually until I got to my first year, or the summer right before undergrad, where I actually had this RU between NCCU and NC State, where I was actually able to build a model microgrid based on with a different amount of like distributed energy resources like hydro, solar, and wind, and basically make it as a model that like would represent a system that would be implemented in like a remote area in Tanzania, right? So that's how I was like, okay, I could start seeing the vision of this research that I want to do and know that I kind of really enjoyed researching that and then, assembling that and then presenting on that same type of topic. But yeah, sorry, that was a little bit of an anecdote, but my
No,
main thing
that's
is
fine.
make sure you're getting your feet wet in whatever you think you're interested in, so you know if you're really interested in it, right?
Got
And
it.
also, especially nowadays, like I feel old now. I'm saying like now with technology nowadays, you got AI, you got all this, you
Yep.
can look up like
Yep.
a lot of the specific aspects of like what that research would be, or is complicated topics, and have it break it down for you. And if you think that's something you're still interested in, then there's lots of opportunity for that. And honestly, I knew like I've always wanted to get in. I'll go to MIT just because the top of the engineering world, right?
Yep.
Actually, I wanted to go. I didn't get in back in undergrad, but I was like, okay, oh well, that was kind of like a stretch goal, so to speak, right?
Yes.
I'm very happy where I ended up though. Like once I had that experience of MSRP, again, the MIT Summer Research Program, and I actually lived on campus, I went around, I saw what was going on, I was able to get immersed in the community. I realized like, okay, this is a place that I think I could really see myself because again, people are very friendly. I would say, especially here at MIT, there's a huge spirit of collaboration.
Yep.
And I know, in life, everything's kind of a competition on some level, but like you really don't feel it when you're here. You feel like everybody wants to succeed and just kind of make sure their research is actually doing something or affecting some kind of positive change. If not like change right now, at least setting up somebody else in the future to do something like that. And it's kind of really inspiring. But the other schools I applied to were, of course, like NC State, because NC State's a very good engineering school. I think they just cracked top 20 engineering programs undergrad. Oh no, they have the number 9 graduate and then crack top 20 for undergraduate. So a very good school. UMD I applied to for actually physics because again I wanted to give myself options between my 2 paths. And even when I was here at MIT, I did a computational immunology problem. It wasn't electrical engineering at all, but I was able to get connected with people in electrical engineering from that program and kind of link things together. And it was also Georgia Tech. I got MIT response first. So I had an assignment back in middle school where it's like, oh, write a letter to your future self and everything, right? And then again, I was mentioning this, I was on the same timing, right? I wanted to come to MIT. So it's just like, wow, I'm like, it's like I don't feel when you're going through these experiences and kind of like building up, it's like I didn't know I was going to end up here for sure. I was just doing like, okay, what I thought was going to be the next best thing for my academic career or like, what I wanted out of life. And then it just brought me here. So then looking back, I'm just like, wow, that really happened. Like I see, but people say like, oh yeah, you manifest things. I'm just like, I don't know. You just kind of get tunnel vision and just keep moving. And if you I keep having the same goals and working towards them, you know, you end up, it builds to a place where you end up to be somewhere that you didn't know or never thought you would actually end up, right? I wouldn't say I didn't think I'd end up here, but it was kind of like out of my mind, right? So, but yeah, I would say it's definitely serendipitous. And I mean, I wake up sometimes, I'm just like, I can't really believe like I'm here and I'm actually doing work. I'm actually able to contribute, because it's, you know, in the past, I was worried whether or not I'd be able to get to that point, honestly, but it's very nice to see that, you know, the work has been validated.
What other schools do you get in other than MIT for the master's PhD?
Well, UMB, NC State. I didn't get to Georgia Tech, strangely enough, which I thought would have been like a stronger choice. I thought that was kind of like a sure-in, but yeah, this is what it is. And then what else? Sorry, there was like another.
The fifth one? Yeah.
But basically, I got into all but one, I think. Yeah.
I actually was fortunate enough to be part of a college prep program, actually about 3 college prep programs. One being my research program. I was part of a cancer research program at Dana-Farber Harvard Cancer Center during my high school years, and many of the sessions in the program provided us with college prep, whether that's, you know, the application, working on the essays, et cetera, et cetera. So that was kind of one resource that I had. I was also part of a program based in my hometown known as La Vida, which provides more comprehensive college application prep. So that was, you know, I was working one-on-one with mentors to heavily refine and fine-tune all of the essays that were a part of my college process, whether that's, you know, the general essay that you submit, as well as the supplemental essays that many schools typically tend to have, as well as receiving ACT. We actually received ACT prep in the program, not SAT. So that program was really, really, really fundamental in honestly preparing me and getting me ready for college. Of course, a lot of the mentors spoke on their individual experiences, having gone through the college process. So, and a lot of the mentors, or majority, if not all of the mentors, came from Black and Brown backgrounds. So they were able to kind of tailor their advice towards, again, a demographic of students that are also Black and Brown, as our experience tends to be a little more unique in relation to people who aren't Black or Brown. So that was really useful and kind of mentally also preparing us for the college, just college in general. But yeah, mentors in general had played such a huge role in the college application. We decided to focus more on the SATs. And I received a 1400. I took the SATs once. I received a 1400. That was a 730 in math and a 670 in the reading section. I wrote a letter in my 8th grade year, and usually we're given the letter back during graduation, and my science teacher happened to give the letter back to me, and I literally wrote what schools I was going to get into in the letter. So as much as people do,
did any of that come true?
You know, I was waitlisted. From some of the schools, so you know, it's a half victory. Get in touch with someone that has attended, and I think that's kind of the common theme that I've had throughout our talk. Get in touch with someone that has attended one of these institutions, because they're going to give you the raw, real reality of what going to these institutions are. A lot of my friends that you know, went to these top 20 schools in the United States felt as though there was a culture shock, felt as though like the carpet was kind of swept under their feet a little bit, because, you know, they were used to hearing the speeches from admissions counselors and used to hearing or watching videos on YouTube, and, you know, people talking their experience from kind of those platforms where it's a little bit incentivized to paint the school in a good light. But when you talk to someone, especially from a similar background as you're able to get, and I would say honestly, talk to as many people from like a particular school, because you're able to get like a different perspective as to what like student life is, academics, you know, all the better if the person you're talking to is, you know, in a similar field as you, or is in a similar field that you want to aspire to also pursue. But everyone says this comparison is the biggest thief of joy. So when you're kind of within your college process, you're trying to you know, gather all of your materials, you're working on your essays, and then you hear your, you know, your friends talk about, well, I'm so upset because I got a 1520 and that's not, you know, that's not the score that I wanted. Meanwhile, you got a 1330. You know, that's also gonna be like, it's gonna be demoralizing. It's demoralizing.
I think having mentors is very important, right? Especially at all levels, right? And be it in undergrad level, master's level, na PhDs. In all of these levels, wakati nafanya applications, nimekuwa na mentors, right?
Okay.
Yeah, nime reach out to a few people ambao walikubali kuni guide through this process. Kwa sababu I feel like it's very important to have people who have gone through this process, right? And then wanaweza kukuguide from kule walipo, wanaweza kukuguide and how you can get there. Na kuna vitu vingi sana ambavyo watu wengi tunaweza kuwa tuvijui au we overlook them, right, when we are trying to apply for graduate school au pia undergrads, ndio. So it's very important kuwa na mtu ambaye ameshapita hii step, aweze na aweze kupa kuna tricks za hapa na pale, ndio.
Yes.
Kwa mfano mimi nakumbuka kitu kuna ambacho na a mistake that I did. Kuna vitu ambavyo tunavifanya kwenye jamii lakini kwamba we take them very lightly, right? For example, mimi nakumbuka wakati when I finished my form 6, right? Mimi na rafiki zangu we opened the tuition center. Na kwenye tuition center ilikuwa kwenye community and the idea was just to serve people kwenye community yetu, right? Kwa pia kuna fellow graduates wa form 6 pia wapo mtaani waajiri kwenye ile tuition center, right? So we created this opportunity employment kwa watu wengine na pia kwa wadogo zetu nafasi ya kuweza kuja kujifunza pale bila kwenda mjini, maana tulifungua hii kwenye community yetu kabisa, ni mtaani kabisa. Ndio. Ile opportunity mimi nilikuwa na yadi kwamba ile experience nilikuwa nairuka wakati na apply shule. Lakini ni opportunity ni experience nzuri sana kuelezea wakati tunafanya college applications. For example, kwenye college applications kuna kitu tunaandika statement of purpose, right?
Yes.
Ile ukiandika kitu kama hii then na kuonyesha namna gani imeweza kusaidia watu wengine, especially to create employment for watu wengine na pia tukawapa nafasi zetu wadogo zetu kuja kusoma, na pia ilionyesha tuna zile entrepreneurship mind, sawa, kwamba tumeweza create a business and running, na ile business ilienda vizuri tu mpaka wakati tunaanza kwenda vioni. Sasa business nilikuwa nairuka siandiki kwenye statement of purpose, right? So nikampata mtu nikamuelezea, akaniambia no, hii ni kitu ambacho inabidi kiwepo kwa sababu hiki kinakufanya stand out, right? So kila mtu anakuwa anafanya kitu kama hichi. So this is just one example, right? And I'm sure kila mtu ana vitu vyake ambavyo amevifanya, lakini we take them like very lightly. So having a mentor anaweza kukuonyesha hivi vitu na kukufungua juu ya namna ambavyo unaweza uka draft your application. So I think it's very important to have mentors kwenye hii application process, yeah. Kwanza nilitarget, that's one, right? Alafu kitu kingine ambacho kilinisaidia pia ambacho pia nawaambia watu that something that they can do is request for application fee waiver, right? So there are some universities zinakuwa zinakuambia kabisa, it's like, okay, so if you need application fee waiver, contact this person. Na kitu kingine ambacho ni muhimu ni usije apply chuo kimoja, right? Yeah, usije apply chuo kimoja. Usije apply chuo kimoja, you have to apply multiple. Useke mai yote kwenye one market, right? Kwa hiyo it's like inabidi utawanye. Kwa nyingine unaweza ukatawanya mayai yako kwamba of course kuna Ivy League schools, kuna top schools, then utaenda kwenye tier ndogo inayofuatia katikati na pia chini, jagawe vizuri wakati una apply, and then angalia chance yako. So this friend is now a friend kwamba alikuwa anafikiria ku apply chuo kimoja, nikamwambia no, this is your dream school, I get it, but you have to diversify, you have to apply to other schools and then it makes sense. So ukiapply chuo kimoja ukikosa, then you have to wait another cycle.
Ndio.
when they're going through hard times, that's what I think a really big time when you want to make sure that your kids can feel like they can come to you. I remember when I was like really stressed about colleges and like going to school because I wanted to be in New York so badly. I was 18. I don't know why I wanted to be in New York. But my parents sat me down and they were like, no matter where you go, I will remember this so vividly. My mom was like, no matter where you go, you could go to community college, you could not do any college at all. I know that you will be so successful in your future because you have the commitment and you have the drive and you are just such an amazing person to do that work. And I think that was a really freeing thing at that time where I was like, no matter what college I go to, no matter what path I have for myself, I will be really successful. And I know my parents have my back, even if it's a path that they're not the most necessarily, they're not even supportive of, but it's like one that wasn't initially on their radar. So I think that was something that was really great for me. Is that if you are a pre-law student, no matter if you're in high school, I do tend to try to tell high schoolers to focus more on their grades. But especially if you are an undergrad, no matter what, I'm always a resource. I will give you my LinkedIn that we can put in the bottom. I'm a little bit busy, but I'm always willing to really sit down and meet one-on-one with anyone who's thinking of applying to law school and talk about the details of your application, free of charge, of course, and just really be a resource because I think there's so much knowledge that I have gotten and received from people who are in my position when I was an undergrad, and I would not be here without that knowledge. And I think I'm more than always willing to give that in a more specific level if law school is potentially the path you see.
I would just say to all like the high school, middle school students watching this, don't worry too much about what you're going to do in the future because if you start worrying a lot, that's going to cause a lot of unnecessary pressure. And also, just make sure you're doing what you love, what you're truly, truly interested in, and don't let too many people give you like opinions that like change.
Not even your parents?
No, my parents.
Because parents have opinions. They're like, oh man, I want my daughter to do this, to be OBGYN. So they didn't play any role into that.
No, my parents actually were very good about not giving strong opinions about what they wanted me to do because I've always been just very independent and focused on my goal. So they've never really had to be like, Becki, like watch your grades, like do this, do that. They're just like, okay, what form do I need to fill out? I'm like, this is what I need to do. Like, so can you please fill this out for me? Like it's always just been like that. And then like I used to want to be so many different things as a kid. So they're just like, oh, like a doctor now, okay, like we'll just support you, whatever you want. So
a little bit. My advice was kind of similar to what you were saying, was to kind of try new things, especially in high school. In high school, trying new things, trying to challenge yourself with a lot of different things. Don't stick to your bubble and not get out of it.
Okay. I know when I was in this college application process, I was really, really stressed, but just take a step back and breathe and realize that you've done all the hard work already. And now it's just a matter of putting that on paper. And so use all the resources that you have, reach out to people, ask questions, and get the support that you need so that the process is a little bit less stressful. And then also just remember that you're not alone. So you do have a lot of support.
Believe in yourself. Like, all the work does not matter if you do not believe that you can actually do something with it, right? So just, I don't know, have your daily affirmations, just make sure that you are on your side.
I would say study hard, don't lose focus of the money. Like if you know what you want, go for it full throttle. I actually have a book right here that I refer to so much nowadays, but it's called Intelligence is Not Enough. I don't know if I know it's kind of blurring, but it's called Intelligence Isn't Enough. And as someone who went through middle school and even early high school, honestly, elementary school, middle school, early high school, like being known as the smart girl, like Hanifa's just smart. She just knows it. Like it's easy. Everything comes easy for her. Not having solid study behaviors, study habits, is honestly going to be so detrimental when you go into college because your intelligence can only take you so far, especially when you're just entering more rigorous and academically challenging kind of
Yes,
spaces.
na hopefully labda itawasaidia wakati wana apply but labda kwa kuambia tu labda niwatakie kila laheri kwenye
Ndiyo.
applications, especially najua application season is on right now.
Ndiyo.
Najua au inakaribia kuanza sababu it's been a while sija keep in touch like to know the deadlines. Lakini kwamba niwatakie kila laheri and they should not hesitate to reach out to people who they think they can be helpful in their process. And
this platform is what's going to take you to the next level. It's not your extra paper. It's not your extra whatever. Na hizo papers zitakuja baada ya work on these soft skills. Kwa hiyo, I think we have to just coach them. And sometimes I think we have to give people direct feedback. We have to do something, and we have to do something that's systematic. But it has to be one-on-one.
True.
But here, it has to be mapema. So that's why I say, to create easy platforms and mentorship, they definitely we have to be very intentional. Ndio kama unataka kuscale. So if you're trying to go from like, if you're going to like from 1 to 10x, then it has to be very deliberate. Haiwezi kuwa hii kwamba, I gotta just put my name and number out there to the ether. There is room to do 10 more of exactly this.
Yeah.
So we're just scratching the surface. We're just scratching.